I'm here at Panasonic's booth at NAB 2024, and Chris is going to walk us through some of the new Panasonic developments here at the show. They've got a new camcorder, new PTZ, new Keros production
Lots of stuff there.
So why don't you take it away?
Sure. Happy to do that. We've really organized all of our things into sort of three main areas. There's the capture section, create, and then deliver, right? So we've got that whole workflow. Right. And the fun thing is there really are solutions in every one of those areas that are new to us. So in our capture area, we're actually showing two different kinds of scenarios. One is a broadcast studio, and the other is more of a connected classroom. So in our broadcast studio area, we've got a number of our studio cameras and some of our high-end PTZs with robotics. But the unique thing that we're talking about there is our new camera control unit, which has the ability to bring 2110 into that camera environment to be able to get the benefits of the easy connection and transmission in 2110.
Okay, for people who don't know, what is 2110?
Simply standard 2110 is a protocol used for transmitting signals over IP. So it allows you to use that IT network instead of having around big bundles of cable that we're used to with SDI. It gives a really simplified way of being able to transmit signals. In our connected control room, or connected classroom rather, we're also introducing a new PTZ, as you mentioned. It's the UE30. It's coming out, which is sort of an introductory model in our PTZs, and really make it a lot more accessible for many people to use that PTZ technology. To top that off, we've got a couple of different ways of automating. So both to be able to use our microphones to track zones within a particular environment so that the camera is following the speakers, or else also with what we're calling a media production suite, which is a set of software tools that allow you to again, auto position and frame a signal or to do the tracking. The other thing that's unique there is what we're calling intelligent keying. So normally when you have a figure that you're wanting to abstract from the background, you've got to have a green screen, all the lighting, all those kinds of things. Here, actually, you're able to use a standard environment and using the machine learning that's available there to identify the speaker that you want to track, and then it's tracking that person over a standard environment.
Will it be able to do that even if the person's moving?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole point. You've got a meeting where your speaker who paces or those kinds of things that are common problems. And yeah, it absolutely tracks them.
So you don't need to use a chroma key anymore.
That's right. You learn that person's facial figure, and that's really just a kind of, here's the person I want, identify that person, and then it tracks that individual all over. People who walk in front, those kinds of things, doesn't distract from that.
That's pretty amazing. And that's going to be available now?
It's available in 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that a new product or is it an upgrade to a current product?
So it's part of a suite of products. It will be a new thing. That's why we're calling it Media Production Suite. There are a number of different plugins that you can sort of customize to the environment that you're working in. So the intelligent keying would be one of those plugins. Auto tracking would be another. There are other kinds of plugins that are available there.
It'll be able to be used with the older cameras also?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And the new camera, which model is that?
The new camera is the UE30.
Okay, and is that going to be HD, 4K?
Yes.
Both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, allows you to do both of those things. Keros is a live production platform. And it's, in addition to switching, it also does audio mixing, graphics, other kinds of things. But the new unit that we're bringing in there is a totally SDI I/O scenario. Keros is a software-defined platform. And so its native is 2110, but for people who are still concerned about that, the show we're introducing one that allows you still that flexibility internally of the software-defined abilities, but its I/O works in your traditional environment. And then when you're ready, you just slip in a network interface card.
How many cameras can you plug into the system?
It depends on the model, right? So you can start with as few as 12, or you can go up to somewhere around 60. But the thing that's different about it is, unlike other systems where every port has to have a physical connection, if you're using an IP scenario, then I'm able to select which of those streams that I want to come into the system at a particular time. In fact, I don't
just use a router?
Yeah, I just connect to the router and I can actually define one button for multiple sources. So I can actually rotate through a much larger number than the actual connectors that I have on the back of the unit.
Oh, that's very cool. Easy way to expand by just getting like a network
Absolutely.
router.
Yeah, that's the whole concept. Many people, when you sort of buy a traditional switching platform, you have to say, what's the biggest possible production I'm ever going to make? And I have to buy that.
Mhm.
Whereas this gives you that ability to say, okay, what's my average production?
Right.
And then I can grow this as I need it. And it's easy to do that.
Can use any network router and plug it in, or
So it would be an
can have
IT switch, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 2110 over IP. But I also have abilities for most of the streaming protocols, SRT, and those kinds of things, as well as NDI inputs, a variety of other IP formats that are available.
Very interesting.
Fun creative tool.
Over on the Lumix side of Panasonic's NAB booth, Neil is going to talk to us about some new firmware upgrades for their Lumix cinema cameras.
Great. So this is our S5 IIX camera. We have an S5 II and an S5 IIX. The main difference between the S5 IIX and the S5 II is the USB-C port. You're able to output higher res, higher quality codecs like ProRes into an SSD. Basically, the main features of this camera is basically we updated the autofocus system, and where it's more of a phase detect autofocus system rather than our old one, the contrast detect. The firmware update that we just announced pretty much concentrates on 4 things. So the main one is camera to cloud Frame.io, which is Adobe's Frame.io cloud integration. So basically, you can send up to Adobe's Frame.io cloud. You have to have an account, obviously.
Right.
But you can send up full resolution JPEGs, RAW files, but also for video files. So the camera will be able to create a 1080 proxy. Let's say if you're recording, 4K files, it'll recreate a 1080 proxy, usually like a 6 megabyte, 12 megabyte files, and it'll send it directly up into your Frame.io account. So let's say if you're a wedding videographer and you have a client that wants to show like highlights of their wedding ceremony to their attendees at the reception, your editor would be getting all of these video files and photo files as they're being shot. Like once they press stop on the record, it's pretty much going to be they can start working remotely, so they don't have to be at the venue. So the guests can now see like a highlight reel at the actual reception. So that's the main thing. The other function that we've improved in the camera with the AF system is a lot more sort of like recognition technology. So you can now do not only humans and human eyes, but you can also do animal eyes. You can do cars and motorcycles. The other function that we added to the camera is a high image stabilization mode. We're kind of known for image stabilization for Lumix.
Now, is it optical or electronic or?
It's actually basically cropping, and basically the gyroscope in the camera is correcting shake. So the high mode, when you're, it's doing almost a 20% crop. So if you're using a wider lens, like on a full frame, if you're using like a really like a 14 millimeter lens, which might have some distortion at the edges, it's pretty much going to correct any sort of image distortion on the end.
Interesting.
And so in a sense, I'll give you some footage if you'd like, but it's pretty much, it's almost like you're walking with a gimbal or a Steadicam. Like if you're shooting on 14 millimeter, it's almost going to look very like a Kubrick shot.
So how much of a resolution drop is there?
It's none. So it's basically cropping the sensor, but you're still capturing your 4K image files.
Oh, wow.
So we also added for still photographers pre-burst function, where once you engage the shutter, it'll capture up to 1.5 seconds of pre-burst, and the pre-burst you can do up to 30 frames a second.
Oh, wow.
So the cameras I would say is mostly designed for hybrid shooters, but with the X, I think most of the shooters that are using the X are more video focused shooters. So that's pretty much it.
So what's the cost difference between the X and the regular?
The X is $200 more. I think because a lot of people of our customers that are using our cameras
a lot of them are still photographers still, and a lot of still photographers probably would not want to work with ProRes files.
Right.
So
right.
that's
But yeah, 200's, not a very expensive price to
Yeah.
pay for the extra functionality.
for an NAB audience. I think the X would be the camera that they're most focused on.